Hello everyone and welcome to the Cello Zone. Today we're going to look at one octave scales, both major and minor, in first position with open string pitch checks. We're going to use these exercises as a way to tune our first position frame notes. These are your first and fourth finger. For the exercises on this sheet, we're going to tune our fourth finger in first position to open strings for the major keys, and then we'll tune first finger in first position to the open strings for the minor keys. Tuning these frame fingers in first position helps us to properly space our notes, and it's not as easy as it sounds. The scales on this sheet are great little warm-ups to do at the beginning of your practice session. It will help you space out your notes, tune up first position, get the cello ringing out and warmed up. I also created this sheet as a way to prepare for a new tune that I'm introducing to you called The Sad Clown, which is a minor key version of French folk song. So you can use this scale sheet as a way to get ready for that new song. Let's start with exercise 1A, the D major scale. To begin with, we will tune our fourth finger in first position to the sound of the open D string. When tuned properly, they should sound like the same note, but an octave apart. An octave is simply 8 steps apart. Always tune to your open string first, as that's your reference pitch, and then match your fourth finger to the sound of that note. If it sounds a little bit low, you have to adjust your finger up. If it sounds a little bit high, you have to adjust your finger down. That's a little bit sharp. It's a little bit high, so I can either roll it down or just scooch it back a little bit. Even when you're playing this double step, you can keep tuning. You see, even by rolling my finger, which is essentially vibrato in slow motion, I can change the pitch quite a bit. If you have tapes on your cello, I usually say that the tape is 90% of the way to your note. So if you're touching the tape in some way, whether you're on the back side of the tape, dead on the center of the tape, or a little bit on the front side of the tape, you should be 90% of the way to your note. But as you can see, rolling even from the back side of the tape to the front side of the tape, that's about the last 10% of tuning your note. So you want to be touching the tapes. Hopefully your tapes are properly in tune still. You want to have your finger making contact with the tape, and from there you use your ear to adjust the pitch. Let's hear an example if the fourth finger was a little flat. It's a little bit low. So I need to roll it up or slide it up just a little bit. Keep tuning your fourth finger until it matches the open string. And once you've got it tuned, leave your hand set up there. We just went through all that hard work to tune our fourth finger, so we want to leave it there and then start the scale. Don't move on to the scale until you've tuned fourth finger. One of the common issues with fourth finger notes, especially with beginning cellists, is not having the right kind of pressure down to the fingerboard. I'll give you an example. Let's say I've got my fourth finger on the tape, should be tuned up, should sound like the note D, but I get a sound more like this. You might say, what's going on? I just tuned up that note. How come it doesn't sound like a D anymore? It sounds like a D half flat. Or even C sharp. And if I lift it all the way off, it kind of just sounds in between C sharp and D, right? So we're getting some quarter tone in between the note C sharp and D. This is because I don't have enough pressure with my pinky down to the fingerboard. Things that can help in the beginning are making sure you have 4 on the board, all 4 fingers down to support your fourth finger note. And you might have to play around a little bit with your arm to get the proper leverage into the fingerboard. So Try not to have your elbow down by your ribs, down by your side, behind the cello. Let's get our arm up a little bit, our elbow out. Get that wing up about 45 degrees. That should help you get a little more leverage into the fingerboard, a little more pressure. We don't want to tense up too much, but we have to find that sweet spot where we can actually get the fourth finger note to sound. If it's not happening yet and you get what I call a fuzzy fourth finger, don't worry about it. Keep chipping away at it. It takes time, okay? So let's double check. This is the first measure of the piece. We're going to do our pitch check with the octaves, D, open D, and fourth finger on the A string. And then we're going to run the scale nice and relaxed, easy tempo. We're not in a rush here. Okay, let's tune. Keep adjusting until it sounds right. Okay, here we go. Let's play the scale. You'll notice in this exercise I've built in the pitch check at the end of the scale as well. So we start by tuning our note, our fourth finger in first position to get the framework of where fourth finger is supposed to go for first position. We do the scale starting with a pitch check. 0, 4, 3, 1, 0, 4, 3, 1, 0, 4, 0. So we get a pitch check at the beginning and at the end of the scale. Let's try the whole thing one more time just to get it a little more fluid so you can practice it again now that you know how it's supposed to go. All right, here's the scale. Ready, go. Okay, with cello, no note is ever guaranteed to be in tune. You really have to work very hard at tuning every single note on every string. Okay, now we're going to take the same exact exercise, the same exact fingering. We're going to bump it down a string. We're going to bump it down a key. So we're going to go from D major, which has 2 sharps. We're going to go down a fifth to G major, which has 1 sharp. So we're bumping down a fifth on the circle of fifths, the wheel of harmony, from 2 sharps to 1 sharp. And when we bump down a fifth, we can simply just bump down a string because our strings are tuned to perfect fifths. As an example, if I count the notes from the G string to the D string, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 notes, right? It's a fifth. So we're going to keep doing this over and over again, transposing from one key to the next, one open string key, boom, bump it down a string, you're bumping it down a key. We're taking all the same fingerings, just moving it over now to the G string and the D string. I'll keep explaining this as we go, but we're going to go through that process every single time. The reason that this works is because the major key is always the same set of intervals. Major second, major second, minor second, major second, major second, major second, minor second, or whole step, half step, whole step, half step. It's not like when you go from D major to G major that those keys have completely different interval sets. The interval just is the distance from one note to the next. Every major key is the same set of intervals. It's just, are you starting that set on D, or are you starting the interval set on G? Are you starting it on C? We're just moving around that same grouping of intervals, okay? That's why we can just pop over our fingering to the next string, and it will work, and now it will be G major. Okay, so let's try this whole exercise 1B. It's the second line on your page. Same exact thing we just did on the high strings. Here we go. Tune up, fourth finger to your open G string. There's open G. There's my fourth finger on the D string. Okay, so if your note sounds like this, it's sharp. You need to tune it down a little bit. It's okay to do a little slidey slide here until it sounds like you've slid into the pitch. That's fine. We're trying to just find where is that note. If it sounds like that, you need to tune it up. It's a little flat. So that's okay too, to slide into the pitch. If you're really, really close, but you can't quite tell, just roll your fingertips back and forth, and then you'll be able to tell, oh, I need to go up, I need to go down in pitch. There it is. If you can, see if you can readjust so that the center of your finger, the contact point, is right on the pitch, the center of the pitch. You can go flat, you can go sharp. See if you can get your fingertip right on the center. Okay, here we go. Let's check those pitches again. Spend as much time here as you need to. There's no rush. We really want to get a good fourth finger for tuning our framework. As you're going to the lower strings, bring your elbow up and out just a little bit more, okay? You get more leverage into your fingerboard. It's easier to press down the strings. So just pay attention to about where my elbow height is as we go down the strings, okay? All right, let's do our pitch check and go through the scale. Here's our tuning our fourth finger. All right, and now the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we have this pitch check at the beginning of the scale and at the end of the scale. And the reason that we're checking on both sides of the scale is that we want to start with a good pitch, as best of a pitch as we can, and then we want to make sure that we haven't drifted out of position. The tendency as we go from string to string with our fingers is that people will drift sharp. They'll slide up the fingerboard. So we want to make sure we haven't drifted out of first position. And we want to make sure that we've kept our finger spacing correct. That's why we're doing our pitch check at the beginning and at the end. So if you're tuned up at the beginning of your scale, and by the end of the scale your fourth finger sounds like this, that means, and you can probably see it, that your fingers crunched together and you lost your space. So we need to go whoop, space it back out, okay? If you are playing, you're tuned up, and then you play your scale, etc., and by the end of it, your pitch check sounds like this. That means that your hand drifted sharp. Generally, when people drift sharp, they kind of keep their spacing, but you just lost your position. So you need to focus on holding your ground. Make sure you notice, what does it feel like here in the arm, in this upper part of the arm, the outer part of the shoulder, and in the upper arm and the bicep. What does it feel like to be properly in first position? And chances are your elbow might be sagging a little bit, pulling your arm forward as you cross your string, or you're bringing your elbow around at a weird angle that's forcing your hand into a different spot. We want to just pop directly over, horizontal, to the next string, okay, without drifting out of position. So notice, what does it feel like over here in your arm to be truly in first position? And you kind of need to learn that for every single position. What does it physically feel like to be in that position? So that I could take your cello away and I could say, find first position, and you go, oh, it's right here. I know. My arm knows. It's right there. Okay? Generally, if you're going flat at the end of the scale, just like I demonstrated the first time, just means your finger spacing is getting crunched together. You've lost your frame a little bit. And that's partly going to come when we do the minor scale too, because we're going to learn that outer framework even better. Okay, now we're going to do the same exact thing we did before. We're going to take the G major scale, we're just going to bump it down a string, down a fifth, okay, to the C string. We're going to start on the open C string, and now we'll be in C major. Notice how when we started on the open D string and tuned to that, we were in D major. Then we bumped down a fifth, down a string, down a key to G major. We were tuning to the open G string, right? Now we've bumped down again, down a fifth, down a string, and we're tuning to the open C string. So we are in C major in this case. So anytime we're using our open strings, for this exercise at least, to tune our notes, that is the root of the key. Okay, that's the first note of the key, right? The one chord, the root. So let's tune fourth finger on the G string to open C. Here we go, the C major scale. Same exact fingering, just down a key. And when I say down a key, I mean we're going from 1 sharp in G major to 0 sharps, 0 flats, top of the clock, the circle of fifths, C major, our home key for everything. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember to get your left arm up a little bit higher than on the G string. And I want you to try this. Take your left hand, all 4 fingers, 4 on the board, press down first position on the C string, okay? Now I want you to swing your elbow down. Bring it down to your ribs, down behind the shoulder of the cello, okay? Now squeeze your note. Notice how all of that pressure is coming from the fingers only. That's a lot of pressure on your small joints and your small muscles of the finger, okay? That doesn't feel very good to me. Now, keep connected to the fingerboard. All the way pressed down, swing up that elbow. Wing it up. And now feel how much force and pressure you're getting down into the fingerboard by leveraging your arm up, like this. And when your arm comes up like that, take a look at the bow. It's the same thing, right? This side, as this side comes up, this side is going down. So we're leveraging our arm like that, down into the fingerboard. It's counterintuitive because you would think, oh, if I want more pressure, I should hang my weight down. It doesn't work like that. We want a strong shape, but keep all this relaxed and leverage your arm up from the elbow to get the weight down into the fingerboard. Think of that like this kind of lever, okay? So, how did you do? Do you feel good about those major scales? Do you understand the concepts of transposing the entire fingering set and interval set from one string to the next, cycling through those keys? If not, hit the pause button, rewind the video, go back, try it again, play through it again with me. And if I'm going too fast during any of the scales, you can always change the playback speed on YouTube, slow it down, try 0.75 speed, try half speed, try a quarter speed if you really want to get meditative with it, okay? And in part 2, I'll see you for the minor scales.